Hello, you lovely people, and welcome back to Sabbatical Stories. I'm your host, Bex Thomas, and I created this podcast to inspire courage and normalise taking a break from your career. If you find these stories valuable, I'd love it if you could help by subscribing, liking, and rating the show. It really does mean a lot. Today's episode is for anyone who has ever followed the so-called perfect blueprint. You know, graduated from a respected university, landed a six-figure salary, bought the house, bought the car, built the family, only to realise that ticking all of the boxes still doesn't quite add up to a life that feels fulfilling. I'm joined by the amazing duo, Zenesta and Nabil, the husband and wife team behind Tiny Detour. Born and raised in Bangladesh, they followed the migrant dream all the way to Australia until a freak accident made them question everything. This is a powerful listen for anyone who's ever wondered, what happens when you've done everything you were told to do and it still doesn't feel quite right?
Deep down, you've tried, dig deep, search wide, enjoy your climb. It's all for you.
Welcome to Sabbatical Stories, Nabil and Zenesta. Thank you so much for being here. And I am super excited about this one because it's the first time that I've had a dual podcast. Can you please kick us off with an introduction to both of you and what your sabbatical story means to you?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, we're also very excited. It's our first podcast ever. So we're super excited to be on your show. And our story actually is that I'm Nabil and Zenesta, as you mentioned. We are originally from Bangladesh. We immigrated to Australia and we made Australia our forever home. We ticked all those boxes and eventually got to a point where we really felt that we needed a break. We always wanted to travel and work for ourselves, but that's something that we found ourselves in a position where life wasn't really allowing us to do so. We got brave, and a couple of years ago, we decided to sort of bite the bullet, so to speak. And we have taken a career break with our daughter, who's 5 years old. And we've traveled all throughout Southeast Asia, spent a lot of time with our families in Bangladesh and also in Canada, which we weren't able to do before with, the corporate careers that we had. And of course, created the time that we needed to focus on building something of our own, which is our YouTube channel called Tiny Detour, as well as a program for immigrants like us who have ticked all those boxes and wanted to travel as well, whether through it's an adult gap year or a career break or just travel and find themselves.
I think you have summarized it so well. Yeah.
That sounds incredible. What a journey. I totally understand the spending time with family. I've just come back from 10 days in the UK with my family. Prior to that, it was only 5 weeks ago that I was in Italy with them. And then it's only 5 weeks' time when they come to France and see me. And if I think about, you mentioned Bangladesh, Canada and Australia, trying to find the time and be with all the people you love across those three parts and geographies of the world is so tough.
Yeah.
If we go back to prior the break, and you mentioned that you'd emigrated to Australia and were making that your forever home. What were you both doing prior to the break?
So I'll start first. So we have been living in Australia, me 15 years, you more than me, because you did your undergrad in Australia. I did my master's in Australia. So after that, we got our jobs. So I have been working in the banking sector for over a decade now. So I'm in wealth management. So prior to taking a career break, I was working in one of the big four banks here in Australia. Basically, what I did was I helped high income professionals who have money lying just there investing, like helping them to invest them.
Oh, I wish.
But you know what? One of the greatest thing working with all these individuals was that the money mindset that I picked up over this decade is so amazing. I've picked up, but I've never implemented anything for myself. And I think in this season of life where I have turned 40, I'm keen to use all those money mind skills that I have picked up from all these individuals who have been practicing all their life and to implement in my life and to make the second act of my life the best that I can be.
Yeah, wow. What are a couple of those mindset pieces that you've taken with you?
Well, one of them is like majority of the clients that I used to handle with, all of them had their business of their own. None of them were employees. And that is something that really intrigues me. What is this lifestyle? Because we had a mindset of like a 9 to 5 job, and it is completely different to a mindset of a business owner. And that is one thing that completely shifts what are the beliefs that you have in terms of the money. And one of them is that building something like a business is a team effort. You cannot do it alone. The more you have in your team and who meets your energy and your mindset, you can multiply it more. And then you can use all these idle money to invest and then build on top of that. As an employee mindset, you go do your 9 to 5, come back, and you keep on repeating that over and over again. And you keep on doing that on autopilot, and you never realize that 10 years have gone past. So that is something that I had a lot of increase. Like my dad was a business owner, but then I chose to do a 9 to 5 job. And then now when I look back after my career, there must be something to it. So that is the itch that we're trying to follow.
And Nabil, what about yourself? What were you doing prior to the break?
My last job was for Transport for New South Wales, but I've worked both across public and private sector. My last job was the director for customer experience for public transport, whether it's trains and buses and ferries and all of that kind of jazz for the regional New South Wales, and basically looking after passenger experience for them. Most of my sort of career has been in client experience, account management, and a bit of sales.
Two what sound like very good blueprint jobs where your families would be extremely proud of these jobs that you've got, and as you say, that whole sort of 9 to 5, pick up the paycheck at the end of the month and rinse and repeat. What was the catalyst for change and for taking that break? Was there one tipping point? Was it a build up? Talk us through what initiated the break.
In our case, it was like a whole bunch of things that happened like in a very short period of time. But I think the one that really hit us hard was, yes, they say that the Western dream, Australian dream is to own a house in the suburbs, right? So we actually put in a lot of effort, built a house from scratch. And then within 1 year, it had a freak fire accident and the whole downstairs burned down. And we basically just took our phones, our daughter, like each other, and just got out, and the fire brigade came. And then we were sort of moving from insurance houses to insurance house for like 3-4 months. And it sort of really scarred us to a point. And during that same time, we had a few deaths
in our family,
in our families,
also in our friend circle.
Yeah. I think all in that sort of told us that, life is actually very short. And if you want something, like you've got to go for it, as opposed to just sort of sulking and saying, I'm unhappy or whatever. Yeah, these were some of the things that triggered us. But I think also the other thing I do want to highlight, Bex, is I think we're very goal-oriented people, especially as coming from an immigrant background. Like we were sort of given like a template, right? Move overseas for a better life, go get your higher degrees, get a house, get a good job, climb that corporate ladder, build a family, get a car, and all of those kind of stuff. I think once you're in the process of ticking them, you have something to look forward to. In our case, once we've ticked all those boxes, I think a big realization was that from there onwards, it would be more of the same, like a second house, a second car, a second child. And we were sort of reaching that age 40. And it was sort of like, okay, all our dreams of traveling and, building our own business, like time is slipping away. And we're getting more and more comfortable in this life. Sure, you mentioned people would be happy, like our families and everyone got like really shocked when we said that, we want to take a career break and travel. In fact, we don't know anyone who's done it from our background. So it was kind of shocking, and we still have to deal with this on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think that while we had all these thoughts, these events, of course, are very unfortunate, but in retrospect, I feel that these were like jolts.
Like they pushed us.
Like it's a jolt in your system and saying, hey, look what is happening. Do you want to do this for the next 20 to 30 years, or do you want to do something different? Obviously, at that time, it was very excruciating because we were living in our own city, one suitcase to another for the past, I don't know, 3 to 4 months, moving from one house to another. It was very stressful, and juggling your 9 to 5 job and everything was too much. But in hindsight, obviously, that was something needed. And if we didn't have that trigger, we would most probably not be having this conversation at all.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Almost looking back and seeing them as, in retrospect, gifts that pushed you to making a decision.
Yeah.
And so when did you make the decision?
I think pretty soon. So what happened was, during that time when we were moving from house to house, we were basically living off our suitcases, right? Because what happened was, like, she really likes, getting cutlery sets and all these kind of stuff. Like
Nesting.
I like homemade.
Nesting. Yeah.
I need to get my furnitures, the exact furnitures.
Yeah.
I need to have different glasses and cups for every occasion.
Like the queen will come someday, like that kind of stuff.
And then everything was shattered, and I was like, I lost interest on everything.
Yeah, so like it all died. Like, and then she had a really nice garden that she built in our backyard, and because we were away for 3 months, like that whole thing died, right? And like our clothes were like, when you get that ashes and it goes inside the clothes and you can't wear them anymore. So like we were living out of suitcases, and that sort of sparked that thought, like, we have so much stuff, and do we really need that much stuff? And we always wanted to go and live in Southeast Asia for a while, and we actually could. Do you know what I mean? Like that seed got planted. But then, we think a lot about a lot of things. We think about doing this business, about doing that, but it just stays as it's like all talk, right? During that time, like, we were talking about this, but we really didn't believe that we could do it. But it was nice to talk about it. Almost sort of similar time, the offices started bringing in the return to office mandates.
Yeah.
And it's been almost like 2.5 years of adjusting to a new lifestyle, working from home and having that flexibility, being able to spend a little bit more time with our daughter and us as a family. And that was being taken away as well, So that's when we were like, okay, everything is sort of like in that perfect position. Like, all we need to do is decide that we're going to do it. And if we decide, plan it out and basically go for it. We said, okay, how long do we think it's going to take, like, financially? And we did the financials, and we said, okay, it's going to take around 9 months. So we actually went ahead and booked the ticket. Like, we booked that one-way flight without anything. Yeah, and we just booked that one-way flight out of Sydney to Kuala Lumpur.
And that flight was in 9 months' time, was it? Yeah, wow, yeah. Okay. And it's kind of like, once it's done, it's done.
Yeah, exactly. We have to make it work, because you can plan as much as you want, you can save as much as you want, but I think that really helped our mindset. Like, we were like, okay, it's there.
And as you mentioned, you're goal-orientated people, so it's almost that you create that goal for yourself and then you work backwards.
Yeah.
Were you back in the house by the time you left?
Yes. Yeah, we were back in the house, but it was kind of strange because we could never look at that house the same way. Do you know what I mean? Like, we got a little bit scarred because we decided we're going to leave for at least a year, and we had to replace a lot of our furniture, a lot of our things. So we decided not to buy new stuff, and anything that was recoverable, we slowly started selling them off because we didn't want to store things. Because, look, we started off with 1 year, it ended up being 2 years, right? I'm so glad we didn't store anything, because it was just an excess expense.
And the other thing was that when we returned back to our home, for 1 month, I was not able to cook because the accident that happened was something from the kitchen, because at that time I was cooking, and for 1 month I didn't cook. And for 4 months, moving from one place to another, from one suitcase to another, our habits changed, our thought process changed a lot. And as Nabil said, that we try to salvage whatever we have and not to buy anything, because we knew by that time that we don't need more. We can make it work with less.
And so in those 9 months, talk us through how you then planned for the one-way flight. Also, there's an extra consideration, which is a child in this whole equation. So talk us through how that played out.
Yeah, so first things I started doing is looking to see if there was a blueprint that I could follow, but I couldn't find anything. For us, the first thing was to sort of figure out, okay, what is that magic 1 month expense that we need? And then we will multiply that by 12 plus some contingency. I think one of the things that we decided is that we wanted to slow travel because we've got a child, right? And we wanted her to continue schooling. There's no right or wrong answer, but we decided that, okay, we want, because she's a very social kid and we wanted her to continue that. So we were like looking at schools, we were looking at locations and everything. So, and we decided we'd do slow travel. So we said, okay, we're going to do 4 countries. So 3 months each. And then we figured out the visas and we realized, okay, in Thailand, you can stay 2 months. So we said, okay, the other 1 month we'll stay in Bangladesh. So all in all, we decided, we figured it out and we came up with that 1 month cost. And we use a lot of resources like Numbeo, and then like it's like this website you can go and get the cost of living expenses based on currencies, and how many people, where you're gonna eat, how are you gonna live, all those kind of stuff. And then there's another website called Nomad List, and I use that a lot. And then came up with I love Excel sheets, and I made Excel sheets and everything, noted down every single thing, and came up with a number. And then she said, no, I think we need to add more on top of that. And I'm glad we did. And then that number was 4,000 Australian dollars a month. And then we said, okay, we need to save that plus 25% contingency. Good thing for us was like, even before we decided we wanted to leave, we got really sick of the whole debt culture that we found ourselves in Australia. And I jacked up a lot of debt through different financial sort of indiscipline, so to speak. So we sort of cleared, I took like around 2 to 3 years to clear out my debt. This is before we decided we are going to take a career break. So that really helped.
Yeah,
and it
and
also,
I need to add that I think that is one of the most important things,
Yeah.
because if we had debt,
it would have been harder.
it would have been harder, and I might not have been on board,
Yeah.
because you would essentially need to fund that debt too,
Yeah.
along with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it was very important for us to be debt free.
Yeah, but then we ended up actually saving for 2 years because we were like, what if we just love it and then we want to do it for another year? Let's save for the second year as well.
And how did you save? Because so many people always say to me, oh, I only have X amount left at the end of the month. But what are your tips for actually then, working back from those 9 months and going, no, we can actually save more than we thought?
Like both our way of looking at money is very different. I'm a spender and she's a saver, right? I just spend everything.
Which should be the opposite,
Yeah.
but it isn't.
I have some bad habits. Like when it comes to money, I love spending on eating out. Like I don't spend on buying things, but I spend on experiences. But one thing I noticed throughout my life is that I can save when I have an emotional goal. So I was able to save a lot when we decided to buy a house. I was able to save a lot when we decided to do this career break. So the first thing for anyone to want to save is that they need to have an emotional goal. Because when you're emotionally attached to that goal, you sort of put blinkers on. So that's what we did. We had an emotional goal. This was something we really wanted to do. And then over time, we slowly started becoming more disciplined financially. So there has to be a level of sacrifice.
And also, I think one of the most important thing that I definitely have to say here is that we had very high incomes. And when we were living an autopilot life, we were spending it without even realizing. And when we decided to do this thing, then all the holes started coming up. And then you realize, no, we have been spending
like crazy
money because we were unhappy or unsatisfied, and we were just spending because this just gives us joy, because there's no other joy left in our life.
Or it's habitual, I think. It becomes a habit, doesn't it?
Yeah,
exactly. And when we had that goal and we knew that we have to save this money aggressively in 9 months, because in 9 months we're not going to have a job.
And we booked the tickets.
In 9 months we're going to travel.
Yeah,
exactly. So we need to do this as soon as possible. And we sold a lot of stuff. Like one of the best decisions now I think we have done is that we have not saved our furniture in like a storage or anything like that. We literally sold everything. We have like 4 boxes in our friend's place that has all my daughter's keepsake, and that's it.
And how do you feel about that, having come from the person who had glasses for every occasion? And
it's been a journey.
He's someone who lives a very minimal life. I'm not. I like to spend money on all these household things, but that incident really shook everything. It just changed everything for me. Through that experience, I realized that you can live a really good and rich life having less good stuff. Whatever we had, we just sold everything. It will seem very funny. I sold even my used nail polishes
Wow.
Like I bundled up 10 used nail polishes and I put a price tag in Facebook Marketplace for $10. Someone came to my house and took those nail polishes. You can literally sell anything and everything. And I think we made a bit
Yeah.
of money from that too, which also helped for our funding.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
And now we have this standard policy. If we haven't used something for 6 months, we don't need it.
Oh my goodness, do you know what? When I first met my husband, I hated I hope he doesn't listen to this, I hated his dress sense. And so what I would do is I would hide certain pieces of clothing that I just thought were awful, and I would hide them. And if he hadn't asked for them within 6 months, they'd go to the charity shop. You mentioned around that cultural piece and you being the only ones or the first ones from your network to actually do this. Talk us through some of the responses you had and any challenges within that you guys had to navigate.
We come from a South Asian background. In our generation, your generation, my generation, no one has ever thought about taking a break.
Yeah.
That is unheard of. If you do something like that, that means something is terribly wrong with you or lost it in life. So we come from that background and we haven't seen anyone doing something like that.
In terms of our parents, I thought they would really go like really mad at me, but they just went quiet. It was almost like, okay, you're old enough, just do whatever you want to. And they sort of thought of it as a 1 year thing, which is what we told them. Because we also didn't know if we'll do it beyond 1 year. Like, what if we didn't like it? And then after the 1 year, we said we're gonna do it for another year, and that's when like they were like really concerned. Like,
oh no, this is a thing now.
They've totally
this is real.
yeah. They've totally gone off the rails. And yeah, exactly. So look, at the end of the day, they come from a good place, right? Like stability is so big in the value systems. So this is completely opposite to stability. So it is completely understandable that they're concerned and worried. They were sort of thinking we're going to be backpacking, living in hostels and trying to save money and scrape through, especially with the kid. But when she actually saw that we didn't compromise on any of those kind of stuff, like we were sending her to international preschools that are not cheap, right? We were living in expat locations and we were traveling to all these different places and we were doing YouTube seriously, all these sort of things. She sort of said, oh, you know what, actually, it's not a bad thing that you guys are doing this. I mean, especially think about your daughter. She's only 5, right? But she has an understanding of races, of religion, of language, of country, that people are different yet same. Over this time, she has picked up Chinese, Malay, Vietnamese, all these different things she's learned in school. Like, obviously, she forgets. But I mean, the idea is there. So my mom and dad saw that. Also, the fact that because we were traveling, we were able to go to Bangladesh multiple times, which they haven't seen us that much before. So it's like a work in progress. And as far as our friends and family, initially it was a bit of laughing it off. They're gone crazy, midlife crisis, let them do, they'll come back. Very recently, we've started noticing a lot of people reach out to us and saying, how can I do it as well? I wish I could do it. Initially, it was a bit hard because you sort of feel like there's bombardment of judgment, but over time, you sort of manage it. I mean, and I think doing YouTube has helped us a lot because you get so much comments coming in.
And I think no one sees anyone's initial stage. No one sees the doubts, the anxiety, the fears and everything. Only after you have gone through, and then when they see something material out of it is when they put a bit of value to it.
And so you're now 2 years in, did you say?
So this month we will finish our second year.
So
wow. And so talk us through what you've done and where you are on your journey and what you see as the future.
One of the most important things that I've learned that I'm going to take back and I'm going to tell everyone is the part about currency hacking. The fact that even though we earn such high incomes in Australia, we were struggling with the cost of living because obviously we were spending mindlessly, but then it wasn't going anywhere. What we used to spend in Australia, 1/3 of that you could spend in one of the nicest places here in Southeast Asia and live such a fantastic life. This is such a gem of a thing. Why aren't people using it? Why aren't they using it to take a break, take a breather, and really redefine what their life would look like for the rest 10 or 20 decades of their life? I think this is something I'm going to harp to everyone's ears and, they're going to get bored of it and then they're going to say, don't comment to me anymore.
It's about being creative, though, isn't it? I think so many people are in a mindset where they cannot see the wood for the trees. And as you say, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so they almost don't know what else is out there or what could be.
Yes.
And it's about being creative. My husband and I have people ask all the time and say, well, how can you afford it? How can you afford to live the life that you do? And it's like, well, do you know what? In an ideal world, yes, of course, I'd have my little pad in Manly, overlooking Manly Beach in New South Wales, which is where we were for 14 years. I wouldn't rent it out. I wouldn't need an income. I would have it so that we could pop back whenever we wanted, that family and friends could use it. I would still have my place in the UK, but I wouldn't rent it out because I don't need the income and we can pop back there whenever we want. And we'd also have France and whatever. But actually, you can have it all if you think differently about it. So when we go back to Australia, we do rent, and we probably now rent in smaller places and more suburban places that's more cost effective than when we were living and earning in Australia. Our house in the UK is rented out because we need an income. And then in France, we bought a totally derelict barn for next to nothing. And so you don't have a mortgage on it, so there's no debt. So when you're here, there's no rent. So you don't pay rent, which is a huge proportion. Mortgage or rent is a huge proportion. But it's about, you call it currency hacking. I call it about being creative. What do you want life to look like? And then how can you creatively make that happen? And if it is around living somewhere that cost of living is not so expensive, that's being creative around it, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know what, like for a lot of people, they love living where they are, they love their jobs, and they're like really lucky people. But there are a lot of people who are unhappy, plain about it, and there are a lot of people who just suffer silently, like they wouldn't talk about it. Through our journey and our content, through YouTube and Instagram, whatever we do, we basically just try to demonstrate that there is an alternative. If that's something that you do want to do, there is an alternative. Because you know how you said you don't know what you don't know? So our job is really just to continue to, through our experience and journey and our learnings, as we said, we were both in corporate Australia, right? So we had zero experience with content creation. We loved YouTube, we loved to travel, and we were like, okay, we're going to give this a go, right? So we learned everything from scratch. So in these 2 years, we spent all our efforts in doing content. And I feel like it's only over the last, say 6 months or so that we feel a lot more confident in getting up on camera and talking.
So Nesta is an absolute natural. Looking at your Instagram, it's like you've been doing it forever.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. But inside, I'm shitting my pants.
The swan analogy.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the other thing, of course, was to sort of tackle our travel bug. We always want to travel. And one of the highlights actually is in Vietnam, her family came over and we did this whole 10-day trip. And that was amazing. Had we not taken this career break and travel, that would have never happened. And of course, I think us sort of slowing down, living a more intentional life, we were able to connect more as a family, something that we couldn't do before. We were spending time, but we weren't present,
The other thing that I want to add here is we always wanted to have a business of our own. And for the past 20 years, we've tried many things in Australia, side hustle, doing this and that. There were times when you went part-time to, do something, but then it didn't happen. And then there were obviously a lot of financial sacrifices, time sacrifices and everything. But we still wanted to build something of our own. But there was no way that we could see it possible in Australia because the cost of living is so high. Both of us need to be in jobs. And if both of us are in jobs, 9 to 5, after 5, we are tired as hell. We have a child that we give time, and then it keeps on repeating over and over again. So we couldn't see this happening in Australia, but with the sort of expenses that we're seeing, we could see that happening. So we could give ourselves our 24 hours back, and we could invest in our business. We could invest in learning these new skills. We can invest on learning new things that we know that is going to help us in the future.
We're coming up to the 2-year mark.
Yeah.
What does year 3 look like?
So year 3 actually is a little bit different. After Penang, we're going to go to Bangladesh for a month to spend a bit of time with family. And then we are heading to Canada because her younger sister is getting married. So
we're going to spend another 5 to 6 weeks there.
yeah. And then we're actually going to go to Sydney for some time to sort of recalibrate and see what the future looks like.
Because initially we decided to do this for 1 year, and then it extended to another year. So there was a lot of loose ends that we didn't address that was there in Australia. We need to address them because we can't keep on continuing with those hanging by.
Yeah.
And one of them is obviously we have a property in Australia that we need to have a look into it. Mind you, while doing this slow travel thing, everything was fine. But the only thing that bugged us was that property, because we put it with an agent and there were so many issues coming up.
Yeah.
If that's one thing that I could eliminate, was the stress of that.
Yeah. I think we're going to stay for like a few months and see what we're going to do. One thing I'll say for sure, Bex, is that this life that we've tasted, we love it so much that we're going to do what is required in year 3 to make this like more of a permanent sort of setting.
So it sounds as though year 1 exceeded expectations so much that it then pathed the way for year 2 to be similar. And now it's about recalibrating and deciding how you're going to take all of the lessons, experiences and everything from those 2 years to look at what the next chapter then looks like and where that happens.
Exactly.
Talk us a little bit about your YouTube channel. What's the intent? What's the audience and the content?
YouTube was a roller coaster journey.
Yeah,
explain.
It was a roller coaster journey because, as I said, like we had no experience in this. So we sort of stumbled a little bit and got to a point where we now feel a little bit more comfortable. Our content is all about showing people an alternative lifestyle, that they can take a career break, take an adult gap year, whatever you want to call it, and travel. Because travel can open your mind to ways that you can't comprehend unless you do it, because we have seen it for ourselves. And during this time, do what you need to, whether you want to focus on a business like us, you want to just travel or reconnect as a family, you do you. We basically talk about Southeast Asia and how currency hacking and location arbitrage has helped us, and comparing it to the West. So that's basically what our channel is mainly about, is that location arbitrage and the lifestyle between the West and Southeast Asia.
Yeah, fabulous.
So right now we are reaching to 6,000 subscribers. I mean, we're really looking forward to continuing this moving forward into the future.
And get the golden button.
And is this the business that you foresee that you will continue with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like YouTube is sort of like, imagine it being the sun for us, like everything else is sort of orbiting around it. That's one of our income sources, like through AdSense.
Okay.
And then the other thing that we do is we do very selective client work. So throughout our stay in Southeast Asia, we've basically partnered up with a lot of the schools that our daughter has gone to, and we have done videos for them. And that was another income source. And also apartments through the landlords or agencies or co-working spaces. So we've partnered with things that people would need when they want to slow travel. And then the other thing, of course, is that we have done a lot of one-on-ones with people who live in the West, like mainly immigrants like us who live in the West and who want to, travel to Southeast Asia, how they want to do it and things like that. But now our main primary focus right now is to create a program that entails it all, to have a little bit more structure as opposed to being more ad hoc.
Something that we didn't have, we want to provide that for a family who wants to do something similar, who are in their late 30s and want to take a break, travel and redefine success and create a new life where they're more in tune with it.
And I think it's so interesting that you say, something you didn't have. One of my signature programs was created simply because it took me 6 years to bumble my way through exactly knowing what I wanted, knowing what was out there, knowing how to, all of those things. I ended up going down rabbit holes and everything, and it's synthesizing that into, 6 sessions. And as you say, if there's nothing out there like that for families that want to do this, then that makes so much sense. And as you say, keep promoting the awareness that it is possible, busting those myths around, I can't afford it, or it's not for me, or, all of those different myths. myths, I think, is so important to bust. With regards to your daughter, what were the key challenges that either she faced or that you faced with her that you had to overcome?
I'll start off with the positives, right? Because the thing that we were most worried about was her.
Of course, yeah.
How will she sort of react to this ever changing environment like every 2 to 3 months? What we've noticed is that she has become extremely resilient. And she loves going to school, meeting her friends, and finding new friends everywhere that she goes to. But I think the biggest challenge has been like, as she's growing up, we feel like she's slowly starting to want to settle down and be around with friends. As an example, like the last school that she went to in Da Nang, Vietnam, it was an Australian international school. And that was the best school that she went to. Like, at least that's what we felt. Their communication was great. The couple there who built the school, they did it out of their own pain because they felt that they couldn't find a school that they wanted for their kids. So that's why they created one in Da Nang. So all the expats basically send their kids over there. And she loved it so much that she really missed that school when we came to Penang. So that's the biggest challenge, is like moving forward. That's what we've got to recalibrate when we go back to Australia, is that how can we have the stability, but also the travel.
And it's a different chapter, isn't it? Her age is a different chapter. Up till 5 is very different of then 5 till 11 and then 11 to 18.
Exactly.
And I personally feel that it is much more easier to do this with a child much more younger.
Yeah.
Because
of course, yeah.
You can just mold them as you want. But as they grow older, you have to acknowledge that they do want long-term friendship, long-term relationship, which we are now trying to figure out, like how we can provide her the stability, the friendship, the long-term relationship, while still doing this lifestyle traveling thing that we're doing, because this is something that we like. We don't want to let go of it. In our society, normally people say is that once you become a parent, everything is around your child. But I think if you can bring in the child around your lifestyle and be mindful of that, that is a better way. Because if you have a happy parent who is present, that is what they will treasure more than, trying to appease them all the time and then not being there happy as a parent.
And the experiences, as you say, that she has collected already in her short life is just amazing. The whole story is phenomenal, and I think an absolute testament to both of you and your partnership and teamwork. I always ask your top tips on anybody who is either thinking about and on the fence taking a career break, or about to embark on one, or currently on one.
I think I'll go first. I think buying that ticket and making that emotional goal, making all the decisions around that goal is the most important.
Yeah, I love that.
Because if we haven't done that, we wouldn't have been able to do this. And obviously, buying that ticket comes from the initial research. You can do that for years, but nothing is perfect. Situations are not perfect. Humans are not perfect. You just deal with it, do whatever needs to be done, give yourself a time, and then just go with it.
Yeah, I think the second thing I would sort of say is that it's always good to question anything. The more we question things, the more we are sort of going to understand whether there can be an alternative. Sometimes when we live a very autopilot life, we feel like whatever we're doing is correct. There could be an alternative. And, the last thing I really like to say is that taking a career break is not the end of the world. In fact, if you do it and plan it and do it well, it would give you way more than the opportunity cost of you not drawing a salary for that year or 6 months or 2 years, whatever that is. Like, the other things that you'll get out of that is just going to set you up in a much better way, provided you then take that learnings and do something about it. A lot of us growing up, we have been drilled into our head that, if you go to a Western country and you've ticked all those boxes, there's nothing else after that you can achieve. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of people live like that, and that's so unfortunate. And we want to break that stereotype for a lot of immigrants who live in the West, is that there is an alternative beyond that. And your happiness and your fulfillment is way more important for you as an individual, but also you as a family unit, your kids and everyone. The benefit is way more than you staying stuck somewhere where you're unhappy. Again, as I say, a lot of people are happy and they're lucky ones. Good for them. But if you're not, then questioning is the starting point. Like if you start questioning, what are my alternatives, you will eventually get answers because you will take action.
And a final third one?
If you are a couple like us or a family unit, it's very important to have alignment. Like even with us having alignment, what happened was
There's so much arguments, so
yeah,
much issues.
as
so
we
much
started
trouble.
this and we got the space, all these things that were sort of stuck inside of us started bubbling up.
Yeah.
But it needed the space to bubble up, right? Otherwise, it would have just stayed there. To have that foundation of that alignment is so important, especially if there's more than one person. And allow that things to bubble up. Allow it. Because you're going to be better off for it in the future.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that is a perfect way to end because, as I said at the beginning, this is the first show where we've had a couple on it. And I think to end on that point is really pertinent. So thank you so much. And thank you both so much for coming on and sharing your story. One that truly has not ended yet. So I will be very excited to follow along and reconnect in sort of 6 months, a year and see where the journey has taken you then. So thank you both so much.
Thank you, Bex, for having us on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bex. It was not scary for me at all. So
good. And if anybody wants to find you, where is the best place to connect?
So we've got our YouTube channel, which is Tiny Detour, or you can find us on Instagram, which is Tiny Detour as well.
Brilliant. And we will put all of those in the show notes as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bex. Appreciate it.
And taking matters into your own hands, you won't believe that you're making headway and plans.
Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to be here. A massive thanks to Zenesta and Nabil for sharing their amazing journey from living the migrant dream and ticking all of the boxes to taking a courageous sabbatical and showing us that there really is another way to live. Their story is such a beautiful reminder that it's never too late to pause, pivot, and choose a totally different path that feels more you. If today's episode resonated and you'd like to get in touch with them, then I'll link all of their links in the show notes below. A special thank you, of course, to Auntie B at the Flaxen, my incredible, patient and talented producer. We're also joined this season by Nikki from the Flaxen, who is working her magic on all things social media management. And of course, a big shout out to the amazing Joe Cook, whose soulful vocals we're lucky enough to feature throughout the show. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could like and rate the show. And if you really want to make my day, go and leave a positive comment too. And if you know somebody who would love this conversation, please do send it their way. Your support means the world, and getting these stories out there to people who need them is amazing. Do you have a sabbatical story to share? Maybe you know someone whose journey would inspire others. Do let us know. You can get in touch via Sabbatical Stories Podcast or message me on LinkedIn. I'm Bex Thomas. Until next time, take care, keep dreaming big, and remember, your sabbatical story is just waiting to be written.
Oh, you.